Hey everybody, it's me. It's sleepy, tired, and uh, wishing I were younger and in better shape. Me. Um, it is 6 days until Joe Biden gets inaugurated, and I know I still got to repair that stupid beeping thing. It's the fire alarm. I'm going to do that as soon as I get done with this. I keep forgetting. I actually keep stopping and then starting up again. I don't know why that is. Anyhow, 6 days from now, Joe Biden gets inaugurated. And I'm looking forward to it for the simple reason we can get back to normal. We can hopefully collectively take a deep breath and realize, maybe the last 4 years have not been the best 4 years we could have had for this great country of ours. The fact is that as much as I hate to say this, but it's the truth, for the first time in my life, I've actually thought, maybe it would be a good idea to move overseas permanently, or at least until things got better here. And I was one of those people who would never imagine never doing that. I just thought that was crazy, ridiculous, and all this, and, just kind of insane and all of that, because it just didn't make any sense. Why would I, who likes being in America, likes being free, likes American sports, likes American pop culture, geek culture, food, and all of that, why would I want to leave? Because this ain't the country I grew up in. This ain't the country I learned about in school. This ain't what it purported to be. And that's because we've been hijacked by people who have decided that instead of making a country that's where liberty, freedom, and justice and the pursuit of happiness is for all, it's just going to be for the few. And they happen to be white and for the most part rich. I never imagined I would ever think of anything like that. I had my disagreements with George W. Bush. I thought at times that there were people in his administration that wanted to push us down an autocratic road. But I don't think George W. Bush, in retrospect, really was one of those people. But I think there were people within his administration that wanted it. And now, 8 years after Obama had the audacity to become the first black president in American history, we got the inevitable reaction by having Donald Trump as our president. And I think history is going to show that he's the worst of the lot. And I'm not saying this because I'm a libtard or anything like that, or a snowflake. If you take a step back and look at the bigger picture for a second. Look at the fact that we're at each other's throats right now. Did this happen under Bush? No. Yeah, we had some vehement disagreements. Yeah, we had some yelling and some shouting, but not nearly what we're seeing today. Look at when it was George H.W. Bush. Yeah, there were disagreements. A lot of people were upset about going to war in Kuwait and didn't think it was a good idea. I thought it was an idea we had to do because of the simple fact that if Saddam Hussein got his hands on Kuwaiti oil, he was going to get his hands on Saudi oil and maybe even eventually Iranian oil, and then we'd all be screwed. Because we have one man with pretty much the bulk of the world's oil under his thumb. That was the fear. And while I wasn't happy about it, mainly because I was of the age of being drafted, and there had been rumors that we might have a draft again. I gotta really fix that thing. I might very well have gone into battle in that thing. Luckily, it didn't take nearly as long as we all dreaded it would. And one of these days, I'm going to talk about that in length. As a matter of fact, I probably will do that really soon. We're coming up, I think, in a few days to the 30th anniversary of that war. And I'll probably talk about that at length at that time, what I was thinking, what I was fearing, and why perhaps we made a lot of mistakes that led to where we're at today. Anyhow, this is a great country. We want it to be great. We just haven't. We have this habit of going, well, we only want it great for a few people. When we first gained our independence, it was only for the land-holding people that were really had lots and lots of land. Basically, it was the new version of the old thing, except we didn't have a monarchy. We sure as hell had an aristocracy. It just wasn't called that. And then slowly over time, we gave the vote to the common man, mainly white man, and then reluctantly to blacks and other minorities, and to women eventually. And finally, basically now, if you're age 18 and you have the sense to register and stay registered and actually vote, and don't commit a felony, you can vote. Although there are times when I think some shenanigans are going on. And in the previous post, I talked about how we can correct those shenanigans. But basically, it's like this. We've never truly been what we purport ourselves to be. We haven't been the freest country in the world. We haven't been the most judicial country in the world. We haven't been the most libertarian country in the world, because we've always had people that haven't been that way. And because of our past, people go, well, why can't we get past racism? Because it still exists. The last 4 years have shown it in prime example, blatantly shown it. And let me stress, I'm a white person. I'm a white person, almost 50 years old. I turned 50 in May. That has been around the block a few times. I grew up with black friends. I still have black friends. Some of those friends I've had since I was a kid. I remember not knowing how groundbreaking it was at the time, but being on the steps of First United Methodist Church of Forest City daycare with some black friends of mine as a 3 or 4 year old. I can't remember the exact age, maybe 5. And we were sitting at the steps right before we got into the went to the daycare. And it was like between the parking lot and the daycare, there were some steps that led down to it. And we were sitting there one day. And this is before I saw the racial connotation of watermelon to African Americans. But there were me and some other white kids and some black kids were all sitting there eating watermelon. As if that were normal. As if, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. This person's only difference is that they're different skin color. You know? And that's always reminded me of that feeling that what's different about them. They're enjoying watermelon like I am. They're talking to me like I am. They like me, I like them. I respect them, they respect me. What's the hubbub? I didn't realize at the time just how groundbreaking this was. This is like the 74, 75, maybe even 76. Probably 75 if I had to guess. Desegregation had just taken place a few years before. The old black school system and white school systems here were forcibly segregated. I didn't really know this until probably the early 80s to mid 80s, when I started really getting a penchant for studying history and all of that, and understanding, oh, so that's why that was important. That's why there were some folks who weren't too happy about the fact that I was a little too friendly with black people. And I've always kind of thought that was weird. Why do people... And it goes back to this. This is my theory about why racism is the way it is. Hundreds of years ago, Europeans went to Africa, and they wanted slaves. They had guns. The Africans, for the most part, didn't. Yes, there were Africans who sold their fellow Africans to the European settlers, but it was Europeans that moved them across the ocean. It is what it is. It doesn't excuse what happened at all. And that's the sad part about it, is the fact that we, and I include myself because I'm part, even though my family has never owned any slaves, we've always been poor white trash. Even though we've not acted like poor white trash, or at least most of us. We never had slaves. We were too damn poor to have slaves. And there are people who occasionally go, well, slaves are well treated. I don't care how well treated they were. You could have fed them really nicely 3 times a day, made sure they got 8 hours of sleep, made sure their labors were well within, they only worked 8 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. Had all the OSHA rules and all that back then. The fact that they couldn't leave and do their own thing on their own free will is still slavery. I don't care how well you treated them. And a lot of them weren't that well treated. As a matter of fact, the vast majority were not well treated, because they were seen as organic machines, property. Just like a tractor, just like a car, just like a blender, just like a stove or a refrigerator. That's what they were. That was dehumanizing. Your car doesn't want to crank in the morning, you smack it. Your slave doesn't want to work as fast as you want him to, you smack him or her. That's the way they were. That's the dehumanizing factor. I don't care how well you treat it. Yeah, you could put all the finest oil and gas in the car. You could make sure you get it inspected every so often. The oil changes right on time. Tires change right on time. It's still subservient to you. It's still a machine to you. Okay? That's what some folks don't understand. It doesn't matter how well or well or not they were treated. They didn't have the liberty to make their own choices. And that's what you need to understand. When you don't have the liberty to make your own choices, when you don't have the liberty to decide for yourself what you're going to do, that's a problem. And of course, we always had racial stereotypes. And the sad part about it is there's always just a little bit of nugget of truth, no matter how small it is, to always back it up. Yeah, there are people who, African Americans, live up to the so-called N-word stereotype, just as there are white people who live up to the white trash stereotype. There's always that little nugget of truth. But that's judging the actions of an entire race of people for the actions of a few people. Do we all judge Asians because there are a few Asians that don't do that well driving, but do exceptionally well on their math? Do we all judge Hispanics as being lazy because some in Spain continue the siesta part of their culture? Do we all judge Italians for being sneaky and criminal-minded because some of them, a minority of them, are in the mafia business? What about the Irish, of which I'm part of it? Do we judge all Irish bad because some of them like to drink too much? Stereotypes are stupid. They have always been stupid. You're judging somebody based on the actions of an entire group of people based upon the actions of a scant few. That's always been that way. Well, I got to get off here. My niece is here, so I've got things I've got to do. I just wanted to come on here and vent a little bit. But for everybody here, good night, good luck, and may the good news be yours.